Hello friends, my name is Olivia. I make videos about books on the internet, and today's video is going to be a wrap-up because I made a resolution to film those more consistently this year, and I have since fallen behind, so I'm trying to get back into it. Disclaimer, new location is because I graduated college 3 days ago. I graduated from American University. I never said what college I went to on this channel, consciously, because I felt like it was a weird thing to do on the internet, even though I know no one is stalking me or cares what college I went to. But I graduated from AU with a bachelor's in international service and a minor in literature. I am back home in New York permanently, which I am so excited about. No offense to DC, but I've been wanting to come back to New York and stay since I got to that city. And I'm starting grad school in the fall. And yes, I'm really excited to be back home and hopefully get into filming home consistently. I've got a room to film in, although I am not filming in that room right now because I have moved out my entire apartment from DC and brought it back to New York. My room is a little disaster. I don't think there's even a spot for me to sit to film. So the next few videos might be in a weird spot, but I'm redoing my room, so hopefully I'll have a cool cozy room to film videos in. This is the longest disclaimer, so unnecessary. Anyway, I'm gonna be doing my wrap up for March and April. I read a weird mix of books that month, so let's just jump into it. So the first 3 books I actually read for a literature class I was taking. It was called Literary Hauntings, and we literally just read ghost stories. It was pretty awesome. So the 3 books I read in the last 2 months for that were Blithe Spirit by Noel Coward, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and The Woman in Black by Suzanne Hill. Haunting of Hill House, I think, is probably my favorite out of those 3. I never get scared by books because I watch so many horror movies that I'm just kind of desensitized to it. But this book actually was pretty creepy. It's a classic kind of ghost story. This young woman, these young people go to this supposedly haunted house to kind of observe and understand the phenomenon. One woman in particular is more affected than others. It was a very cool, mystical, kind of creepy ghost story thing, which I really enjoyed. The Woman in Black was kind of similar. One man who works as a lawyer or something is going to this odd town to kind of close the estate of this old woman who has died. When he is there, he sees some kind of suspicious things, some sort of entities and ghosts and hauntings, and comes to kind of uncover the secret of this old woman and why these hauntings are kind of following her around. I loved this one. I thought it was super atmospheric. I loved the way the setting and all that kind of creepiness played into it. I wasn't as convinced by the ghost or scared by the ghost, and the ending felt a little bit it fell flat for me. I feel like there wasn't enough of this very cool revelation to the truth of the situation, but it was still very enjoyable. And Blithe Spirit by Noel Coward is actually a play in which these people are kind of having a seance one night, a man and his wife. The man is an author, he's trying to kind of learn about psychics for a book that he's researching, and during the seance he accidentally calls back the ghost of his dead wife, which obviously causes problems in his household with his new wife and him. It's a very weird, dark, comedic look at death and relationships that I really enjoyed. I will say that all of the characters are pretty dislikable. They're not good people whatsoever, but that's kind of the fun in it, is watching these not good people kind of fumble about with these weird supernatural forces. Either way, I gave all of these books 3 stars. They're all really solid reads. Nothing amazing to write home about, but it was a very fun class. I really enjoyed just spending an entire semester reading ghost stories for college credit. So I also read some comics this month. I've probably mentioned this before. I am a massive, massive, massive Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. After the show ended in season 7, the story continued on in comic book form. So I read the first 4 volumes of season 8. I think there are 8 volumes of season 8. But I love the art style of these. Super vivid, very kind of unique, dark but fun Buffy kind of feel. The form of comics obviously allow for so much more daring and weird choices than television. You don't have to pay for special effects to get things done, and you definitely see that in these comics. I think the storylines are a lot more ambitious and broad and global than what we saw in the show. It definitely feels very different from the show in form and in kind of that plot line that follows, but the kind of comedic feel is still there. The characters still feel very authentically Buffy to me, and so that made me actually really enjoy these comics. I gave all 4 of these volumes between 3 and 4 stars, so I really enjoyed them. The next book I read was an absolutely incredible memoir, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. This is a memoir that Paul wrote in response to his cancer diagnosis that he got when he was kind of just finishing up his med school a residency, I believe is the term. So he was just finishing up this massive part of his life. He was about to start interviewing for jobs, and he was very much on track to get an incredibly prestigious, high-paying job when he is diagnosed with cancer, tumors all throughout his body. And so this memoir reflects upon his entire life, kind of, and it's really a deep reflection on medicine, what led him to become a doctor, his experiences as a doctor dealing with death and with these different patients and with all of these stresses that come with the medical field. And of course, it's also a reflection on his own life, on mortality, as he wrestles with the fact that he is on track to die. And Paul actually did pass away after kind of finishing this novel. I'm so grateful, like genuinely grateful to Paul that he took the time to put this experience into words. I think that trying to understand death and mortality is something that we all wrestle with, but very rarely do we have insights, true emotional insights into people who are consciously going through it, consciously watching themselves lead up to death. And he gave us those insights with such intimacy and vulnerability and eloquence. It was heartbreaking, but it also managed to be soothing in some sense because of how carefully and thoughtfully Paul put his own thoughts about death and life onto paper. It made me think a lot, of course, about my own life, about mortality, about what we leave behind, about what makes a life worth living. It was so beautiful. I would recommend this book to literally everyone. I think it is such a valuable experience to read. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars for prose, a 3 out of 5 stars for pacing, and a 5 out of 5 stars for impact. Normally I rate books on plot, characters, and originality. Kind of hard to do that with a memoir of this subject matter, but overall a 4-star read. Highly, highly, highly recommend. The next book that I read in the month April was a book that's been pretty kind of popular on BookTube, lots of thoughts floating around, and that is Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. As a lot of you probably know, Sasha Alsberg is a booktuber. She's one of the largest booktubers in this community, and she co-wrote this novel with Lindsay Cummings. Zenith is a sci-fi kind of adventure following our main character, Andy, who is the leader of like this mercenary crew in space. She and her female crew of like space pirates just do lots of different and often illegal jobs people in the universe. In this novel, she gets kind of enlisted into a very intense mission by people from her past that she's trying to escape, and this plot, this mission, takes her into dangerous situations and makes her reconfront traumas and issues in her past. I was super excited that someone in our community is publishing books. I think it's going to happen a lot more in the future, and I wanted to like this book, and I honestly really didn't. I'm debating putting up a review because I feel like I have too many thoughts to condense into this reading wrap-up. I don't really know if it's worth it for me to put up a review. I don't know if some of you guys are actually interested in. Many of you have probably watched your own reviews. For the time being, I guess I'll just say that I wasn't really impressed by any aspect of this novel. I feel like the plot felt super contrived. A lot of the twists or just exciting plot moments felt odd and just thrown in there and a little lazily put together. The characters were so 2D to me, honestly. I feel like these authors tried to make some very intense emotional situations happen with these characters with their backstories, and I just didn't really buy into any of that. I think it's honestly the best way to put it. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars for plot, a 2.5 to 3 stars for prose, which might be a little bit generous. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars for characters, a 1.5 stars out of 5 for originality, and a 1 out of 5 stars for impact. So really a 2-star book for me, unfortunately. So, in the month of April, I've been most excited to talk about these books. Honestly, in the month of April, I read Blue Lily, Lily Blue, and The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater, which are the last 2 books in the Raven Cycle series. And I mean this so genuinely when I say, I have not felt this strongly about a series since Harry Potter. I read Harry Potter when I was a child. Bear that in mind. I can't put into words the intense, unreal feelings I have for this series, for the characters, for the prose, for the plot. I'm not even gonna try to like give you guys my eloquent feelings. If you want a longer review, maybe I'll put that together, but I don't think that I yet can put into words what I feel because I only recently finished these books. If you have not read this series yet, just read it. The last book that I read in the month of April was such a cool read. I'm very excited to tell you guys about it. It was Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. It's a very short novella. It's only like 100+ pages, and it is so weird and so good. It is written in a very dreamy way, and you sort of realize as the story goes on that the narrator, the female narrator, she is in a hospital bed somewhere. She's kind of in her own head having a vision of the day that has passed, the last 24 hours of what has happened to her leading up to the hospital bed, and there's a voice in her head of a young boy who is pushing her through these memories, telling her she should look for certain things, certain details that probably sound so weird and so trippy. That's because this novel is so weird and so trippy. I don't want to say anything more about it. I think it's really fun to go in and try and figure it out yourself because it's very confusing. It really feels like a fever dream in that sense of just you not knowing what is happening, not understanding, but being so enthralled and so tense. Like I said earlier in this video, I don't get scared by books very easily, but this is the closest I've gotten in a very long time. I was on the edge of my seat. I literally picked this up one day and could not put it down. I was just so enthralled. If you're looking for something different, creepy, thrillery, you have to pick up this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars for plot, a 4 out of 5 stars for prose, 3 out of 5 stars for characters, 5 out of 5 stars for originality, and 4 out of 5 stars for impact. So rate this book very highly. So those are all the books that I read in March and April. Very weird mix of like comics and school books and books I didn't like very much and books I loved very much. If you guys want to talk about these books further, please always use the comment section down below. If you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on the books, like the ones I mentioned perhaps reviewing, please let me know as well. Thank you guys for watching so much as always, and I'll talk to you soon with another video. Mwah.